Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fired Up, the podcast for marketers working in early and late stage startups. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Fired Up. My name is Morgan McClintock, and today I am joined by Nicole Pytel. Hey, Nicole, who are you?
Hey, Morgan. I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Just had a great Thanksgiving, and we're into the push towards the end of the year. So it's go time. Today, we're going to be talking about B2B advertising, one of my favorite topics. Most startups spend their budget on Google Ads and LinkedIn, but there are a lot of other options as you scale. And so to talk about that, we have invited Phil Parrish, who is a co-founder and president of PrograMetrix, to join us to talk all about how you sort of extend your paid media program beyond the sort of obvious go-to network. So Phil, welcome to Fired Up.
Great to be here, Morgan and Nicole.
Well, it's great to have you. And so let's just kick off here. Talk to us a bit about why Google Ads and LinkedIn are just so dominant when it comes to B2B advertising.
Yeah, for quite some time, B2B marketers and business owners have felt that Google Ads and LinkedIn are kind of these safe places to advertise, right? That I can either target a very high intent or specific keyword query or search on Google Ads, and I can reach my desired decision maker, or on LinkedIn, I can upload my target account list or select specific companies I want to advertise to, and even further, apply very specific job titles or job functions within that audience. And it's this safe place where, hey, all other B2B marketers and companies that I'm aware of or advertising, these are the places where it certainly feels safe to reach and engage these users. And the reality is that for quite some time, I would say over 5 years, there have been advancements to what I would call as precision targeting that empowers B2B marketers and business owners of high growth startups to reach and engage decision makers and buying influencers at high value accounts across the premium open web, outside of just social media sites or Google, where we know business decision makers and human beings spend their time. What I would say is that our firm, PrograMetrix, certainly manages and sees value in paid search advertising on Google and targeted advertising on LinkedIn for our B2B SaaS, fintech, financial services, and like B2B manufacturing clients. They have their place in the media mix. We certainly see value, but it's not the entire paid advertising investment on those channels. There's more ways to run a very targeted exposure to high value accounts and the decision makers at those accounts, wherever they spend their time online, not just on two platforms.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about it being a safe space. And especially, in the startup world where every penny is pinched more than in other places, it makes sense to start in the safe place. And we have this conversation with clients all the time. Hey, we've got very targeted keywords. We've got a very targeted list on LinkedIn. Everybody else is doing it, so you need to do it as well. So it makes sense to start there. And even that can be a bit scary if you've never done it before. But at what stage should you maybe start thinking about advertising on another platform? Like, what are the signs that you're ready to move from that safe space to something a little different?
Yeah, and I'm going to generalize here because I think, to your point, Nicole, every business and the maturation of the business is at a different stage. Certainly, the level of investment that these B2B marketers can make varies. But I would say, once a company is consistently running paid advertising, at least within Google, LinkedIn, perhaps Meta, or even a retargeting campaign, and I can expand on that in a minute, if that is part of the annual marketing spend, right? Like, we are going to run an evergreen campaign on some or all of the channels I just mentioned. It has its place in our mix. This isn't a start it, stop it, see if leads trickle in. Like, this is part of our strategy. then I think you're at a point in the maturation of your paid media approach where you can expand reach and frequency beyond those, what I would call walled garden platforms. Usually, if I'm relating this to a budget level, usually this is around, I would say, low six-figure annual investment. So if we think of a $100,000 investment, that's just over $8,000 per month in paid ad spend. And I think to your earlier point, Nicole, that may seem like a large budget to some B2B, startup companies. But the other point I wanted to make over the course of our conversation today is that is one of the challenges, I think, with paid advertising. It is expensive. Morgan, you know this so well, right? And though our agency is laser focused on paid advertising, effective audience targeting for B2B companies, that doesn't mean we don't see value in that same B2B client leveraging all that company can within their owned and earned media. So PR is so vital to earned, right? And even within owned, when we think of SEO and all of the changes that are happening with AEO, that's more of an owned strategy, but the outcomes of it are earned. And so a B2B brand needs to be covering all of those bases for paid advertising to really be effective. So I wanted to mention that it's important to have a multi-channeled approach, right? Paid advertising isn't the silver bullet. And like I mentioned, I think one of the challenges is it's expensive to buy that ad space. And then if you're using an agency or an ad tech platform on top of that, there's another cost there. So I wanted to express that because you have to be certainly at a particular point in your journey for this type of investment to make sense. But usually, like I said, think of it as a low six-figure investment. If you're at that point, it's part of your strategy. You've been running these campaigns, you're looking to grow. Now I think that there are very targeted channels and other platforms you can leverage in your paid media mix, once again, to expand reach and frequency beyond walled garden platforms.
Yeah, I agree with you. You've got to have the rest of your channels already. You've got to have a great web experience. You've got to have good content. You should certainly be optimizing your site for SEO and for AI search. Like, you've got to have a multi-channel approach. $8,000 a month is still early stages for a paid media program. Let's be clear. We tend to say, hey, look, per network, LinkedIn or Google Ads, try to get to $10,000 or more just for that one, because the clicks are expensive, particularly on LinkedIn, and you need a certain volume of data. There's no point in getting 4 clicks per day on LinkedIn to your landing page, because even if a 25% conversion rate, like, you're just getting such a small number, it's not worth it. And so there is a minimum viable amount. I'm interested if 8,000 is that amount. But, you've got to get up there. Plus, you've got to, if you're using an agency, you have to pay their fees. They're your partner. And yeah, there's some ad tech expense as well, potentially. And so when you're right down at that low level, also the fees and the ad tech stuff are disproportionate to the ad spend. So there is a sort of maturity level from the overall marketing, and then just the confidence of being able to put a decent amount of spend behind this before it's worth switching on, I guess.
Agreed. And I think the answer to that, Morgan, is not black and white. With all of my years of experience having managed my agency over the last 10 years, and before that being on the advertising technology side, it's not like there's this figure of 10,000 per month per platform, or once you get to 25,000 a month in aggregate spend, you're going to drive this another realm of performance, whatever performance is, on-site conversions, requests a demo, clicks to your website. There's various metrics, obviously, we can report on. But when I said earlier, think of it as a low six-figure spend, about 100,000 a year. That's if you have some internal capabilities and skill set to manage your own paid search campaign on Google, to manage a campaign on LinkedIn. You've been doing it. It's not like this is a scary investment. It's targeted. You're getting some value. Now, as you go through your annual planning and you're looking to expand reach and frequency, now I think you're at a point where you've established a good foundation. The organization has buy-in to paid media. Now you're looking to increase your budget, but To do so, it needs to be targeted. Well, you're not going to go from 0 miles an hour to 100 overnight. So, to give you a couple of other data points, we've found after running hundreds of B2B advertising campaigns across programmatic, paid social, and paid search channels that around a $25,000 media budget per month is where we see more impact.
Right.
And frankly, we're at a place as an agency, just to be clear, where our minimum investment that we need from clients, and so these are really well capitalized startups that have a high growth trajectory or mature B2B organizations, our minimum is $50,000 a month. So that's a $600,000 annualized investment. So those are certainly different ranges than, let's say, $100,000 a year annualized. But I think there's a lot a B2B marketing team can do once they reach that, low six figures in spend to increase reach and frequency. And then if you can scale up over time to $25,000 per month across various channels, that's where you begin to really drive more volume in terms of marketing qualified leads and then some immediate demand for your product or service. And that is the real impact of paid media. It's to drive awareness, it's to drive marketing qualified leads that need to be nurtured. And then there's going to be a small percentage of your total addressable market. The data we look at suggests only 5% of your total addressable market is in market right now to make a switch or a purchase. So yeah, you'll get some of those quick wins, but most of this needs to be nurtured and engaged. And obviously you need to be able to deliver from a sales standpoint to close these opportunities. So that's kind of the swath of budgets that we've seen over the years where we're at as an agency in terms of supporting for clients. But there's a lot you can do as you scale up over those budget ranges to drive more impact.
That makes great sense, and it definitely keys with what we're saying. Once you're at a $50,000 a month ad spend, you're confident about it. You've built some systems. You're doing a mix of awareness and demand lead gen programs, and you've got the way to sort of justify the budget and then nurture those leads over time. And your proposition. You've got some customer lifetime value metrics, and how much it's worth investing in getting those leads. Okay. And so I've been investing in Google Ads. I've been investing in LinkedIn. That's where I started. But of course, that's also where all the other startups are investing. Those are the most competitive. I'm thinking, right, we're ready from a maturity perspective. What are my options if I want to add a new network? What should I be thinking about?
I think the two safest options, and when I say safest, I mean in terms of likely the most efficient pathway to a lead, right? Or even customer acquisition. If you think of like a CPL, cost per lead, or CPA, cost per acquisition basis, the two safest, most efficient avenues, I would say, is a combination of site retargeting or CRM retargeting. So site retargeting is pixel based, right? Users are coming to your web property. They aren't converting. The vast majority of them aren't converting upon visiting your site for the first time, even the second time, third time. And so there's a way that we need to recapture and keep the brand top of mind as that potential buyer conducts more research. That buyer may have done a little bit of research, but isn't ready to make a purchase decision for 6 more months or even a year, right? So we need to stay engaged with accounts and decision makers or even buying influencers that to some degree have raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested. I'm just not ready to engage and start talking to sales. So site retargeting uses pixels to tag those users and give you the ability to retarget those users across LinkedIn, Meta, and even programmatically across the open web, which I'll talk about in a moment. CRM retargeting or CRM onboarding, if you have a focus in your CRM and you can segment audiences, then there's a lot you can do with your first party CRM data. It could be to retain accounts when they come up for renewal, if you can segment that type of audience. It could be an upsell or cross-sell offer to current customers. In most cases in the campaigns we manage, there are some level of prospects that are cold or somewhat warm that our client wants to re-engage. And so we have privacy compliant ways in which we can onboard that first party data into an advertising platform and target those users that, once again, have some level of familiarity with the brand, the product, the service. So that's one pathway, using first-party data to power paid advertising. I would say the other really efficient approach is some form of content syndication. There are a variety of companies in the market that we work with where this is their core business model. You are promoting some type of longer form content, what we typically call a lead magnet. Think of this as an ebook, a white paper, a research report, in some cases, even a really robust case study. And so you can syndicate this content typically through a subscribed email newsletter. And what the content syndication provider guarantees based on your budget is a contracted amount of leads that will be delivered directly into your CRM or through a CSV file that then you can nurture with an email automation campaign. So those are two very efficient ways in terms of cost per lead or cost per acquisition that I would recommend once you're expanding beyond, let's say, Google and LinkedIn. And then more broadly beyond that is, I think, the avenue that programmatic advertising, using B2B data, using your account lists, can open up. And I know we'll talk more in depth about that in a moment. The last thing I would say, circling back to Google Ads and LinkedIn, once again, this is in our media mix for virtually all of our clients. But here's the challenge within B2B. For paid search and Google Ads, many of our B2B SaaS clients, some of these are very disruptive startups. Some of these have, AI technology. Well, the search intent, the search queries for these terms are very, very narrow. Yeah. So even if you wanted to deploy a more robust budget, you can't unless you sacrifice targeting precision. And who wants to drive long tail clicks that aren't relevant, aren't valuable? So that's the constraint on paid search and Google Ads or Bing, right, or Yahoo for many of our B2B clients. And then separately, when we look at LinkedIn, I think there's three headwinds that many of our clients face. They just don't quite understand with LinkedIn. Cost of ad space is very, very high. For some of the niche first-party data sets and audiences we're running on LinkedIn for clients, CPM rates can be above $150, $200. So the media has to perform so much more efficiently for it to net out to an effective cost per lead or cost per acquisition. So high cost of ad space on LinkedIn. Secondly, your competitors are there. So you're fishing in the same ponds as your competitors. So how do you differentiate? The third is the creative, and we don't have time today to go in depth there, but fundamentally, we see the best results on LinkedIn for our clients if we design ads that don't look like sponsored content ads. It needs to be newsworthy, breaking news. At times, and you would appreciate this, Morgan, we're even driving clicks to a third-party press release about that company. It's headline news about a new product or service that that company offers. So those are three of the struggles with LinkedIn, which is why expanding into programmatic advertising and all of that entails can actually drive not only more branding and awareness and consideration power, but better demand gen, which I know we'll talk about here momentarily.
All good points, all great points. And, for the folks who may be scared thinking about, oh God, these high costs, well, LinkedIn especially is much more pay to play than it was just a couple of years ago. And, the days of we're going to put out an organic post and all of our followers will see it, like those days are long, long gone. So to get the reach on LinkedIn, you've got to pay for it. But okay, let's say I'm a brand, I'm ready to expand. This all sounds great because I'm paying through the nose for LinkedIn, maybe Google, great point. If you've got really cutting edge tech, how many people are actually searching for it on Google? How many people are actually in market for it? So I want to expand. What do I do? What's the process? How do I get started?
Well, first you got to conduct your research. And, while that may not be earth-shattering feedback, you got to conduct your research. And I think first you need to look internally. My experience, having done this for, many years, there is a minority of B2B marketing teams that have the internal skill set and capabilities to really scale and manage paid advertising in-house. And of those, usually it's more of an enterprise mature brand that has a larger team, right? They're just at a different stage in terms of the organization where in-housing can make sense. But I want to be clear, there are some great B2B marketing teams that do omni-channel targeted advertising, programmatic search and social in-house. And kudos to them. It can be done. So you really got to look at your internal skill set. Do we have the subject matter expertise? I think some other things to consider as you're looking to expand, to your point, Nicole, is what is the liability risk? And am I going to face headwinds in procurement if I'm now having to license advertising technology with longer term investments like 12 months plus, right? So that's another technology licensing cost above and beyond the actual dollars needed to secure ad space. So the media spend that some B2B organizations, they don't want to shoulder that cost. So I think those are some things to consider if you want to scale and manage this in-house. On the other side, if you look to engage an advertising agency or even a consultant, what I would really advise is, well, there's thousands of agencies in the US alone that go to market as some type of advertising agency, right? So if you're really looking to expand paid media and it's a core part of your overall marketing strategy and budget, then you need to find a team that specializes and has a track record working with B2B organizations similar to yourself, but maybe even beyond where you're at today. I think the diversity of B2B engagements and those experiences, those at bats, as I like to say, is really important. Is the agency laser focused on paid advertising? Is paid advertising for that agency just search and social, or does it include programmatic? If the agency's checking those boxes and part of their delivery to you as the client comes with an integrated ad tech stack, then perhaps that's the best approach. As we talked about earlier, there's a cost to the agency as well. But I think one of the underestimated value adds a really good agency can bring to the table is coming up with an innovative strategy that within your four walls may be hard to devise. And then secondly, speed and time to market. Because if you take on this Herculean task of integrating an ad tech stack and signing licensing agreements and working on creative and the paid media approach, you might just be so much longer to getting ads in market. And if you're a startup that has growth metrics to achieve, then time is of essence. So I think the agency model, if you can find a qualified, trusted advisor to kind of guide the ship, that may be the best approach in terms of overall investment and speed to market.
Well, not going to get any argument from me about that. I do think it's good advice. And often it's common to have an agency because it's complex, it's high value, it's important. It's very difficult to keep up with this if you don't see it implemented across a number of different campaigns to know what's working and read the trends. Not impossible, but it is difficult. We've talked a little bit about programmatic here and the ad tech platform. So I do want to just sort of drill into that. Talk to us a little bit about using a DSP, a demand side platform like the Trade Desk for B2B. Like, what is that? How do I use it? What are some of the sort of best practices? Because this is where I'm going to be doing my programmatic, but how do I go about it?
Yeah, so marketers are no different than medical professionals or lawyers in terms of coming up with our own native language and acronyms to make things sound confusing. So, we're just trusted to be the experts to manage it. So, we've been using some buzzwords here. So let me just set the foundation of what a demand side platform or a DSP is. It's just a fancy way of saying another advertising platform. Fundamentally, not that dissimilar to Google Ads or LinkedIn or Meta, but the mediums, that's what's quite different. So programmatic media, think of that as just everything outside of the walled gardens of Google, Meta, LinkedIn, Reddit, which I want to talk about today because that's got, I think, a growing impact on B2B advertising. Programmatic media is all of the channels outside of those walled gardens, and you are managing the programmatic media in a demand side platform, in a DSP. You're an advertiser that has demand for ad space across these mediums. Programmatic advertising can be a combination of ad formats and channels like programmatic display or programmatic mobile, native advertising, online video. There are thousands of quality websites that human beings access every day that have digital video players on them. You can run video advertising campaigns outside of just YouTube. Connected TV, over the advertising, a huge growth channel for B2B marketers today and going into 2026. Streaming audio advertising, advertising on podcasts programmatically, digital out of home. Of all of the channels, I would say we have seen the most growth and interest and adoption from our B2B clients within digital out of home, which I would be happy to expand on. Commerce media, there's more and more companies that are now developing advertising networks. Intuit now has their small and medium business advertising network where you can reach small and medium sized business owners. So a lot of companies, PayPal is doing this, are now building ad networks because they have robust first party data that advertisers want to access. There's rich media, high impact advertising. So that is primarily all of the ad formats or channels within programmatic advertising. Next, I want to discuss where we believe the best ad tech lies. And so, from a DSP, programmatic buying platform standpoint, there's three leaders in the market and there's everyone else. Those leaders in no particular order are the Trade Desk. Secondly is Display and Video 360, which is Google's flagship product. And then there's the Amazon DSP. As of right now, the Amazon DSP isn't as B2B focused. I do think there is value in advertising on Prime Video, and we do that for some of our B2B clients. I think that next tier down, we like StackAdapt, but for a variety of reasons, our preferred DSP programmatic advertising platform for B2B clients is the Trade Desk. It's a publicly traded company. They are now an S&P 500 company, very robust technology. Frankly, the technology is so robust and complex that it scares not only brands themselves, but many agencies out of it. And that's the one thing we love about the Trade Desk is that we have a team of data nerds and technologists that love going as deep as we can to squeeze every ounce of juice out of a piece of fruit that is our client's campaign in a very robust platform. And so the reality is that if you're looking to expand reach and frequency beyond walled gardens, an organization called Global Web Index, they do a lot of consumer research. Their data suggests that B2B decision makers only spend about 23% of their time on social media. So you have this big opportunity to reach and engage your total addressable market outside of social media. And this is the role that programmatic plays. From aggregated performance across various B2B clients, we actually see that programmatic campaigns, depending on the ad format and channel, can outperform LinkedIn very commonly, can outperform Meta, and in some cases, longer tail paid search keywords. The other thing I would add is that the Trade Desk is a conduit to reach decision makers and buying influencers at high value accounts across the open web. What we love about the Trade Desk is that it integrates typically via API connections with a multitude of other partners and technologies. So we believe the perfect marriage with the Trade Desk is using Bombora's B2B intent-based data. We also use B2B data from companies like ZoomInfo and 6sense and Forbes and MasterCard and Visa, etc. So testing all of those B2B audience segments alongside the brand's first-party data and leveraging that for precise audience targeting in the Trade Desk. And then on the reporting and measurement side, we use a combination of some of Bombora's measurement tools, but also a great company called Octane 11, which can report on ad exposure down to the account level and can even integrate with the brand's CRM system to show, hey, we exposed our advertising campaign across all of these channels at the account level. And now we see in the CRM that there's an opportunity with the account. Here's how our advertising and marketing influence that net new opportunity in the CRM pipeline. So When I said earlier, one of the agency's core jobs and the value that you can extract by engaging within an agency is having that integrated ad tech stack out of the shoebox, as I like to say. That's what's so critical, because there's no single platform, whether it's Google or LinkedIn or Meta or the Trade Desk or Bombora for data, that is going to be the one solution in your paid media approach. It requires multiple data sets, multiple technologies, but it has to be managed and integrated in a fashion that creates efficiency. And that's what our agency, over the years and a lot of testing and trials and tribulations, has become quite effective at.
So you said a few things there made my ears perk up, decision makers, high value account, lots of first party data, which of course leads me to think of ABM. And that's what everybody wants to do. They want to have those high value accounts. They want to go after this targeted list. They don't want to spray and pray anymore. So it sounds like you really can broaden your advertising reach and do ABM at the same time, because I think that might be perhaps a misconception. Oh, if I go bigger, am I going to lose, this target account list? Am I going to wind up spraying and praying inadvertently? But it sounds like you can do ABM and do programmatic.
Yes, and frankly, you can do ABM. And look, whether we call it ABM or account-based targeting, or you might hear me say TAL for target account list, we mean, hey, the marketing and sales team at the B2B organization has a defined list of accounts they want to engage through targeted advertising and marketing. So how do we precisely scale that? We don't want to loosen the grips. We don't want to go outside the account list. The good news for our listeners is that this has been in play beyond just LinkedIn for over 5 years now, and it's only improving. The other good news for our listeners is that I'm still surprised to this day, even certainly mid-market, even enterprise B2Bs that aren't doing this beyond Google and LinkedIn. The capability has been there for years. And so the main takeaway I want to give to our listeners is that there are two data companies we primarily use, Bombora and Dun & Bradstreet. Many of you know the Dunn's number. So Dun & Bradstreet is very much a data company as well, where we can take that account list. Now, the takeaway is that we need the company name and the domain name. We need those two fields in a CSV spreadsheet file, and we can onboard that list either in Bombora and Dun & Bradstreet. So we really believe in optionality for our clients. We need to test multiple providers. But what happens is we onboard that list with Dun & Bradstreet and Bombora, then match that against their identity graph. So that becomes a custom audience we can target. We then distribute that audience to our preferred buying platform. For us, that's the Trade Desk for Programmatic. We can also send these account-based lists to LinkedIn and Meta. We can even enrich it with more data. So there's a lot of optionality in how we can distribute these audiences. And then what we do within those different advertising platforms, let's take the Trade Desk for Programmatic as an example. So we have the account list. It's now matched to the Trade Desk's identity graph. So we can target these accounts. Well, we're going to apply job titles and job functions over the top of that. Sometimes even demographic data. If that B2B brand wants to narrow down targeting to a specific age group because they believe they have data that's the buying committee, if you will. So there's other data elements we can add to that audience, but 100%, Nicole, we can target a very defined account list across the open internet. We're not just relegated to LinkedIn. And then from a measurement standpoint, if we're using specific tools, we can drill down at the account level, literally click into each account and see how many ad impressions we have served, how many clicks we have generated to our website from this account, any on-site conversions. So from both a targeting standpoint and then account level measurement, those capabilities are in market today. There's more and more B2B marketers becoming aware of this. The last thing I would say is that for years, the concern is, well, I don't want to run a consumer campaign. I have specific business professionals I need to target. And that's why LinkedIn has felt so safe. I think what today's B2B marketers need to take away is that we're targeting business decision makers or buying influencers, but what are those professionals as well? They're human beings. and they stream Hulu at night, and they listen to podcasts not just related to business or finance, and they're out in the physical world exposed to digital out-of-home impressions. They watch preferred video on the go. And so these are all avenues that you can touch those people outside of just the office in a meaningful and effective way. And so that's what our ad tech stack does, and why ABM is actionable outside of just LinkedIn for today's B2B marketers.
Right. That's great. So, I mean, if I'm doing ABM, I don't need to necessarily be using Demandbase or Sixth Sense and their ad network to get the capillary data about who has clicked this ad at this organization and then come to the site and their engagement level. It sounds like I can use that. Our friends at Demandbase, those platforms are great. But when it comes to programmatic advertising here, you can get similar data back through your ad tech stack. So just talk to us a little bit about measurement and attribution, then unpack that a bit more for us.
It's a good question. So I don't think any B2B marketer is going to get their wrist slapped if they're using Demandbase or Sixth Sense. No. I know those are just a couple of organizations you mentioned, and I think that those companies can add value, and there's certainly more that they offer than just ad tech and paid advertising. But that's where we've really dug in with those particular companies when we've done our due diligence, which is at least every 2 years, if not more frequently. And the challenge with those two organizations is they're not ad tech companies. They're not DSP providers. And so the fundamental technology source, that conduit, that pathway that I was talking about earlier, simply cannot compete against the Trade Desk or Google's Display and Video 360 platform or StackAdapt, right? And so I think it comes down, even from a technology perspective, what are you specialized in? What are you great at? Sixth Sense is becoming a data company. Like, their data is now targetable in the Trade Desk. Sixth Sense is a very large customer, Bombora. What does that mean? They're buying Bomboras and white labeling it. So when we think about efficiency in buying, when you're paying a fixed rate $16 CPM for display ad impressions, there is such a huge markup in that equation that it's just not going to perform as well. And so when sales reps are comped on selling as high of a CPM price point as possible, that's not in the best interest of the end client, which is the advertiser. So that's why our ad tech integration, we look for the best data providers like Bombora. We combine and integrate that with the best buying platform like the Trade Desk to drive as much efficiency in terms of awareness and demand gen for our B2B clients.
So let's talk about the giant pink elephant. Let's talk about AI. How is AI impacting all of this?
It's obviously a timely and important question. I get this a lot. And for our organization, there's a couple of things we're doing with AI. On one side, just from a paid media, paid advertising standpoint, the platforms we've been leveraging for years have had machine learning and AI powering the engine for years now. So it's not as if, as a paid media agency, it's been this Herculean change. The AI is getting better. The human beings controlling the machines can do a bit more, but I would say it's more incremental gains. So that's one part is we've been leveraging AI to power ad targeting for years now. I think what our agency is doing a really good job of, and there's certainly more work to do, is we're ingesting and pushing data from all of these disparate ad platforms to a data warehouse. We invest heavily in this. And then we query that data to make deeper optimizations faster, to deliver and develop campaign insights, audience insights to our clients faster. And what our director of technology and ad ops is doing right now is developing our own custom AI prompts to even get better at that process. We fundamentally believe we need to be able to deliver better performance and insights faster to our clients. If we can't do that, we'll seek to be relevant as an agency. So that's a little bit on our process for AI and how we look at it. But where I think AI is really changing the game for B2B marketers is more on the creative side. There are certainly leaps that are in growth that are occurring from tools that can develop ad creative and messaging much quicker without necessarily having to invest as much in a creative agency or even at all. And I think these AI solutions for messaging and creative development are getting so good, and we're still early in the game, that I do think in some cases the creative agency can be replaced. And so that creates a whole lot more budget that the B2B marketer could either then deploy into paid media or through a different marketing program or channel.
So what trends have you been seeing among the major B2B tech advertisers that you work with? Earlier you mentioned Reddit, so I want to maybe circle back on that, but what other trends have you been seeing?
Yeah, let's cover Reddit. They've come a long way with audience targeting. They have a number of ways to target audiences. The subreddit categories and keywords are so high intent, and we're learning that more and more buying influencers and decision makers are turning to Reddit as part of their research and kind of social proof when looking to make a buying decision. So we are activating Reddit campaigns with clients' test dollars more and more. And Reddit is also integrated with Bombora. We can push custom audiences to Reddit from Bombora. We can also measure ad exposure and account penetration using Octane 11 measurement and reporting, like I mentioned earlier. So Reddit is definitely part of our stack. I think Reddit's going to see a lot more ad dollars from B2B marketers over the course of time, both in terms of it just performs well and it's a new channel to reach and engage. And then I would say other trends that kind of the two takeaways is we touched on it earlier with AI, but I think B2B marketers are expecting and they want to see from their service provider, like an advertising agency, how are you using AI to give our media performance a competitive advantage? And how are you using AI to help us tell the story of our campaign in a clearer fashion faster? So I think that's becoming an expectation. I mentioned the use of AI in terms of creative development and messaging. I think the other trends we're seeing is that B2B marketers are now seeing the impact of what has been deemed kind of these more upper funnel channels. So we see more and more B2B clients leveraging connected TV advertising because, to our earlier point, Nicole, we can still target specific job titles on that account list, but the ad we're serving is a 30-second spot. So I think connected TV and over-the-top advertising. I also think streaming audio and podcast ads, once again, targeted to the account list. Those are channels that can really help B2B brands separate themselves from their competitors that didn't even know these avenues are possible. So I think now going into 2026 is a perfect time for B2B marketers to start testing these channels if you're not already, because that's where you can really create a gap and differentiation between your brand, product and services, and the competitive set.
So you mentioned 2026. It is officially prediction season. Do you have any predictions that you'd like to share when it comes to advertising for B2B tech next year?
I think that my biggest prediction is if we look at all media channels, I think we'll see the highest annual growth invested in forms of audio, so streaming audio, podcast advertising, and then probably secondly, digital out of home. I'm not saying that will be the majority of dollars in the media mix, it won't, but we'll see the highest growth in those channels because it's effective and it's a way to differentiate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you just see the pickup of podcasts. People are going to want to escalate.
Morgan, if you look at time spent within streaming audio and podcasts, the amount of media dollars going to those channels is disproportionate to time spent. So there's so much ground to make up there. And that can be an advantage for B2B marketers that understand that and take advantage of it.
So just as we wrap here, any final advice that you have got as brands are considering pushing beyond Google Ads and LinkedIn in 2026?
Yes, you can take an account-based approach beyond those channels, and you really need to understand, is my total addressable market just in these channels? Or are there effective ways I can reach and engage them outside of these channels? And the answer is yes, for all of the reasons I mentioned earlier. So if you have built that foundation and the organization believes that digital advertising, paid media has its place in the annual marketing investment, then seek ways to leverage that account list and the job titles and job functions on top of that in new and unique ways, and take a testing approach. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour, but at the same time, you can't just resort to the same platforms and channels that you have been for the last 1, 2, 3 years, because that's just the way we've done it. That's not an effective reason. And so hopefully some of the things we talked about today, there's some clear takeaways that you can apply in your paid advertising moving forward.
Brilliant. Great advice. So Phil Parrish is the co-founder and president of PrograMetrix, media buying agency for tech brands, as you've probably heard from this conversation. Lots of experience in that area. Phil, if people want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
Our website, so programmatrix.com. And then if you wanted to get in touch with me, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So Phil Parrish on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to have a conversation about really not only paid media, but marketing in general. I'm a B2B marketer myself. So our agency deploys many of the strategies that we provide for our clients. I love connecting with and talking with fellow B2B marketers so that we can all get better at our jobs. That's what excites me day to day. And so happy to connect with individuals.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, I really enjoyed the conversation with you today, Phil. Nicole, thanks to you too. That was a lot of fun. And thank you all for listening. Hope you got a lot out of that. And we will drop contact details for Phil in the show notes here. And please drop us a comment. And we'll see you all again this time next week.